Yeah, today's little project, and because we're working around being snowed in here, I thought this would be a good time to do this. I thought I'd put a couple minutes of little things that that I've done in the past on these parts. Now we know these parts, when we first got them, they were pretty rough shape. They were broken, so cracked, broken, chipped, parts missing. We got all of the things reinforced with carbon fiber, JB weld. Up here on this piece, I had to redo this whole mount, redo this with bondo, but we're ultimately going to paint this whole area, the area that's inside the bike, a flat black. The bondo that we have up here has kind of, after 2 or 3 layers, I'm kind of happy with it before we get ready to prime it. But what I wanted to do is, this is the part that I wanted to say, is before you actually put the first coat of primer on here, I'll get some of this dry because I've been sanding it. Actually, I've been sanding it for about an hour. And some of the things that are important before I actually spray the first coat of primer on. Now this motorcycle it's originally black plastic, red paint, black paint, then on top of that it's red, black, and black. So it's really got a lot of paint on it. And what I've been trying to do, and I'm going to show if I can up here, where you can see there's 3-4 layers, that's going to all chip off. So one of the things I wanted to do is a roll of sticky back paper to get in there and maintain the curve. The objective is to get as much, you try for all, but there's always a little bit left, and not distort the shape. I want to keep the shape. I don't want to have a washboard or a ripple board or whatever. But now what's nice is when you have rolls of sticky back paper and you have different diameters, well, there's things, I'm just trying to find one here that would be, that one is done. The flat areas you can use a sanding block for. This is handy for some areas. An example is in here, you can get almost the whole thing sanded out, catch that edge. Another thing that's really important with all body work is, and I think it really defines a real high quality job. Now see, there's a radius in here. How nice that gets right in there, maintains the radius. It goes over this part here that's been cracked. The idea is to do the body work with as little bondo and as little filler as possible. And sometimes you can do it with none. We did Glenn's fairing with none, and that was a real successful job. But getting all the radiuses, no matter what the radius is, and you can always use different diameter, little parts, rolls of tape, anything. The idea is you almost always, this is one of my favorite, the old X-Acto knife. If I need to get into a radius area, notice I'm putting the blade away from me, I can get that blade right in there, get that radius real nice, get rid of as much of that black paint that's in there. I have a feeling that black paint is probably from Home Depot or something, or somewhere. But now, once I'm done with that part of it, and that part is kind of self-explanatory, and it goes on forever. What I want to do, take some sticky back paper. I like to do this dry, not wet. Dry meaning I'm not using water. And everything that's an edge, wherever there's an edge on this part, now I know this part looks really ratty now, as most things in doing body work do. But when we're done with it, hopefully it'll look, I wouldn't say as good as a brand new part, I'd say better, because the factory doesn't radius edges. They don't really put on a high quality finish. They put on a, good enough, but certainly not the super high end finish. Everything that I'm going to see as a radius, that's an edge. Now what happens if I leave the edge coming to a point where it's really sharp? That's where paint tends to crack. It's the same reason you polish a connecting rod, because where there's a razor sharp edge, that's where a crack starts. That's where a crack starts in paint. So anytime I spend here, and I'll probably, even after we're done with shooting a video here, try to get a couple little tips on, because Anybody that's going to paint something, now also anybody that's going to paint something and then bring it down to the shop to have me spray it, it's nice if you do a good quality prep job. I mean, Najat is doing some real good prep on his Ducati now. That's one bike we should have the whole paint job on at some point in time. We have several others that we've done, Glenn's bikes, and one for Vince, among other people. Not to make it a name thing, but all these edges, to get them radius, is going to result in having a much, much nicer job. And I'd like to see, before I actually put the primer on this, I'd like to see no shiny paint. Everything's scratched, because the scratch will allow the paint to stick a whole lot better. There's two kind of bonds in painting. You have a chemical bond from the thinner in the paint melting the paint underneath it. That's called a chemical bond. You also have a mechanical bond where the surface is rough and it's getting a tooth like two washboards sticking together. So if we have, and even up by the windshield here, I know you're not really going to see this, but I'd really not like to paint the crack there. Now, another trick, and it's probably the best trick that I've learned in 50 years of doing this, maybe more than 50 years. My God, I'm old. Because I was doing a lot of this kind of stuff when I was a 10-year-old kid. I was doing bondo work. But anyway, not for anybody to be overly impressed with that. But one of the things, there's a couple of tools make your life a lot easier. It's an ordinary, this you can buy in any body shop supply place. Any sandpaper at all, in this case we were using wet or dry. It's 220, it doesn't matter because the primer is going to fill in all the scratches. But we'd like to have everything scratched. So the trick here, again, if you sand by hand, this surface winds up looking like that. You never get that flat mirror look. At least I don't. Now, as the final thing, and what's good is I've got a little bit of extra soap in the water. Will not only get the surface flat, it'll be scratched, it'll be ready for our self-etching primer. And the best trick I know of to try to convince people is never look at the part. The part looks terrible. Feel it with your hand. In this case, I feel there's a little rough spot right there. Your hand is a lot better at picking up little mechanical defects, especially in something that's this mottled. So if I get all the edges radius and I get all the sanding done and I can shovel my way out to the table and get this primed somewhere in the course of the day, I'll feel like I really got one more step in this track bike project done. Now, what's really nice, now I know a lot of people that have corresponded with me about this project. So why don't you take the whole bike apart and then sand the whole bike and then prime the whole bike? Well, what happens is then the day you spray to clear, there's nothing to do. See, we always have a part that we're sanding, and this is going to be the last parts except for the wheels. We always have a part that we're sanding, a part that's drying, a part that's curing. In this case, our gas tank is curing from the paint we did just before some clean paper towels, just before the big snow came, the big Frosty the Snowman snowstorm. Now, and I'm not looking to get rid of roughness. I'd like it to be rough. I'd like that paint to bond, because I'm going to sand 1, 2, or 3 coats of primer with some fine grit paper. This is 220. I'm not looking to get a mirror-like surface out of it. But if I can't feel it, it's probably going to be pretty good. Now, I can feel it just a little bit there. The reason is the plastic is softer than the bondo. So to make up for that, what I'll do is I'll take a piece of sticky back paper, and this is always a roll from a body shop. It's a great thing to have. And now this is a hard block. See, where's the other block? This is a soft block. So what happens? It contours, it makes nice big smooth edges. This makes sharp edges. So what I want to have is where the bondo, and right away I can see the high spot. It's coming through light. I can finalize this. Any spot I see before I prime this that looks a little shiny or doesn't have a scratch etch surface, or it looks like it has some of that third or fourth coat of red paint on it, I really don't like to sand a lot dry, but I like to do the final sanding dry. So I try to do all the heavy duty stuff wet and then just the final little bit dry. Yeah, I don't like to breathe this dust in. Of course, if we could do it outside, that's going to be perfect. Any place I feel, now I feel a spot right here. And I don't have, now this is going to be too big of a diameter. What I need to do here is find something a little smaller diameter. Got to be a little creative here. Sometimes you have to be really creative, in fact. And I don't have, oh yes, we do. Okay, our decal stuff looks like I'm just giving you a good idea of if you have a bunch of things. By the way, they sell these in body shop supplies. They're called polywogs or tadpoles, depending on which company makes them. And yeah, for 20 bucks you can have a big set, but it's not as much fun and challenging as this. Now that little area, if you see in here, let's see if we can just show it. There's a little, I can see that's the old paint that's shiny. It's got a shine to it. I don't want to see that. What I'm always afraid is going to happen if I don't get off this all of this Home Depot paint. What's going to happen? Somewhere in this finish, the thinner in my paint work, the urethane thinner is going to hurt that finish. And then I'm going to have a repair of something that I put a lot of time and work into. And in the overall painting of something, which a bike like this is probably 200 hours, realistically, I don't want to have any more repairs than I really need. Heck, I don't like to have any. Anyway, just not to belabor the point and make it that it goes on and on infinitely, but a part like this, there's been a repair here. I can see something coming through. There's a shiny spot. In here, I'm going to have to get with the sanding block before I prime it. There's just hour after hour of work here. But the difference is, this is a part I'm not even sure you could buy brand new, or if you bought it off the internet, it'd probably be worse than this part. And this part, I know at least everything is reinforced, and just so I know everybody out there knows I can predict the future. When this part is finished and it's all buffed out and it's got all that trim and decals and stickers and everything on it, I just have that gut feeling you'll be impressed. But I've been known to be wrong. Now, this is the part I always look at. I want to look at it up close. Anywhere that the bondo ends, I want to close my eyes and not feel it. I want that to be invisible. This I want to get rid of. Here's a little shiny spot. I want to block sand with that hard block. I don't know if that was a sticker, a scoop, or whatever. These are some holes that we're not using. I think the blinkers went there, or the luggage rack or something. Inside here, I want to get all these edges radiused, all of this smooth. Here you can see there's a crack in that Home Depot paint there. Well, we're going to sand that until we're down into black plastic. I want all these edges to be radiused. Now the paint work, and I've got a real custom paint job in mind. It's going to have a big, it's going to be similar to the paint work that we have on the rest of the bike, and it's going to carry the same angle through the tank, the seat, and this part of the fairing. So these little indentations I think are going to work to my advantage, because when you get to an indentation like this, the paint is going to change color as it goes up, and we're going to have those white borders, the big letters over here, the custom windshield. So once that's all done, I have to think in a couple hours, well, maybe another hour. And the thing is, we're in the middle of the winter. There's so much snow outside, it doesn't even matter. I want to get as much of this done in the prep stage as I can. Now, as I always do, come over to and I always have a bench where I lay out the parts. The reason is I kind of like to look at it and see what this finish is going to look like. This fender had a lot of repairs. All of these side pieces were repaired. But the idea is, if you can envision it in your mind, it just makes it so much easier to put in the hours. So again, we've done this paint job by doing 1 and 2 and 3 pieces at a time. By the way, let me just run over and look at the tank. We got all the stickers, all the decals from John that are going to go on the fairing. John Pothier. And see what I do, I have that right under a heating vent so it dries, right under Valentino Rossi's hat. But anyway, and when that finish is done, we get the rest of the clear on that. The next time I get to work in the shop, I want to do the fairings today. Maybe tomorrow I'll get to sand that out. But again, the snow is holding us up, but it's not stopping us. And there's a big difference between you have to work around some things like the weather or whatever and not being able to do it. And I think when this bike is done and we do the final photo shoot with Najat, I think everybody will be happy with it. I'm real happy with it. Karen's happy with it, and so far all the comments I got, except for one person who not sure if he's jealous or not. Anyway, and anybody wants to contact me for any personal information about this kind of work, it's windyu@AOL. And I try to do the email about 10 times a day, so we don't go into limbo land here. That is, of course, unless I'm babysitting. Now see, if I don't answer the email right away, this is probably the reason why. And I'm out riding my Ducati grandson here. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. And all the friends that we share this passion for motorcycling with, feel free to share all the information. By the way, some people don't know that this was my father here. This is actually his 1939 motorcycle license and some pictures from the Ken Butler Thrill Show. And what a good-looking guy I was in high school. Can you imagine? Wow. And look what happened to him over the years. My God. How did I get from there to here? It's unbelievable. But anyway, I keep saying that, but I really do. I don't want to end the video here without saying I have a lot of work to do here, but it's very rewarding to bring these old bikes back from the graveyard. And this one's, I got a hook in him and he's coming out of the ground right now.